Great tzaddik of Yerushalayim, Rabbi Ari Levine, was once in a taxi. He was driving home to Yerushalayim. And as they started up the hill to enter Yerushalayim, the driver asked, "Rabbi, where is your home?" And Rabbi Ari Levine didn't respond. And as they got to the entrance of Givat Shaul, where the driver knew Rabbi Ari Levine lived, he asked again, "Rabbi, where is your home?" Rabbi Ari, who was sitting next to a friend who was getting noticeably agitated, Rabbi Ari did not respond. Until the driver, frustrated, turned around and said, "Rabbi, what's your address?" Rabbi Ari Levine told him, "My address is such and such." And his friend looked at him as they got out of the cab and said, "Rabbi, why did you not tell him when he asked you the first two times?" He says, "My wife was niftar a couple months ago. And when he asked me where my home was, I had a hard time responding." Because sometimes we feel far away from home. And like we spoke about this morning, Yerushalayim Baruch Hashem is beautiful, it's built up. Everything is beautiful. Except that everything is wrong. We've returned to our house, but we have not yet returned to our home. Which is why in the Tefillah of Nachim, Rav Soloveitchik said that even though we now have Eretz Yisrael and we have a Medina and we have Yerushalayim bi'adeinu, HaKotel bi'adeinu, Yerushalayim is still in ruins. We have a house, but we do not have a home. And today is the day that we feel that more than ever. But in addition to today being a day of homelessness, Chazal tell us in two places, in Yerushalmi and Brachos, and in Eicha Rabbah, Chazal tell us that Mashiach is born today. And the Yerushalmi tells the story that at the moment that the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, there was a Jewish farmer who was out in the field with his cattle somewhere in the world. And the ox that he was plowing with started to groan. And an Arab merchant walked by and said to him, "Your temple is being destroyed. Stop working." And then moments later, the ox groaned again. And this Arab merchant looks at him and he says, "Pick up your ox, Mashiach has been born." And he says, "How do you know?" And he says, "From the groaning of your ox." And the Maharal explains in Netzach Yisrael that what this means is that the whole world changes. When the Beis Hamikdash is destroyed, you can hear it from the groan of an ox. And the whole world changes when Mashiach is born. And there's many more details to share, and one day we'll have an opportunity to learn the Maharal in Netzach Yisrael. But there's a hard stop at 8:15 because there is no mitzvah of Tosefes Tisha B'av. But I want to try to understand what it means that Mashiach is born today. The Tzaddik speaks about this a lot. Tzaddik in Tzidkas Tzaddik and in Dover Tzedek. And what it means that Mashiach is born today is that at the moment of the greatest tragedy of all of Jewish history, the tragedy of all tragedies, from that place of ultimate shattering and breaking, is the beginning of the greatest light being able to be revealed. Because says Reb Tzadok, every year on Tisha B'av, every year, Mashiach is born. In every generation there is Mashiach. And every year he is born on Tisha B'av. Over and over and over and over and over and over again, HaKadosh Baruch Hu sent into the world the neshama of Mashiach Tzidkenu. And Mashiach doesn't know that he is Mashiach, much like Moshe Rabbeinu did not know that he was the Goel until the Ribono Shel Olam said to him, go. Moshe did not know that he was going to redeem us from Mitzrayim until the Ribono Shel Olam said, it's time for you to go. Mashiach is brought into the world over and over and over and over again. Which means that right now in this world, at this moment, there are dozens and dozens of opportunities for Mashiach Tzidkenu to be revealed to us. Because Mashiach isn't coming. Mashiach is here. We just can't see it yet. Mashiach is here now. Geula is here now. The rockets could stop falling now forever. There's certain midrashim that have Hatzlacha. There's a Psikta Rabbah that was turned into a song. In the moment that Mashiach will come, but that's not the original language of the Psikta Rabbah. The Psikta says, when Mashiach will be revealed to us, he will stand on the roof of the Beis Hamikdash and he will say, Anavim, Anavim, oh humble, beautiful, sweet Jews, the time of Geula has come. And if you don't believe me, see my light that is shining on you. You understand what this means? At the moment that the Melech Mashiach is going to be revealed to us, which means that he is here right now, he just hasn't been revealed. He's going to stand on the roof of the Beis Hamikdash and say, what do you mean stand on the roof of the Beis Hamikdash? Doesn't the Rambam tell us that Mashiach is going to be responsible for building the Beis Hamikdash? So it's about a 9-way machlokes in Rishonim. But I'll share with you that the Aruch LaNer tells us that the Rambam Be'ikar believes that Mashiach will come and build the Beis Hamikdash, probably. Certainly, according to the Rambam, the Beis Hamikdash will be built by us. According to Rashi, the Beis Hamikdash will descend from Shamayim, like we just read in Nachem. Says the Aruch LaNer, Elu ve'elu divrei Elokim Chaim, both of them are true. We will build the Beis Hamikdash with our own hands, and then HaKadosh Baruch Hu will inspire it with the Shekhinah. That there will be a guf, a body of the Beis Hamikdash that is built, and a neshama of the Beis Hamikdash that is infused. That's the Yerushalayim Shel Mala and the Yerushalayim Shel Mata that will meet in this world in reality. Which means that it's entirely possible And let's just understand very practically, because Rav Kook was asked this question over 100 years ago. You'll see this in Mishpat Kayin, in Hilchos Beis HaBechira. They asked Rav Kook, can we build the Beis HaMikdash now? Or do we wait for Mashiach? What do we do? And Rav Kook writes all of the Shitos, there's a lot of machlokes. He says, however, if we could deal with the practical concerns, I see no reason not to build the Mikdash now. So what are we doing while we are waiting for Mashiach to grow up? What are we waiting? What are we doing? So I have a suggestion. It's not my suggestion. It's a Cheskel suggestion. Because after the first Beis HaMikdash was destroyed and Yechezkel was sent into Galus along with all of the Jews, Rahman al-Islam, that saw the destruction of the first Beis HaMikdash. The Rebbeinu Shalom says to Yechezkel in Perek Mem Gimel, Ata ben Adam haged as Beis Yisrael as Habayis. Go and tell the Jewish people about the Beis HaMikdash. And let them be embarrassed about their sins. And let them understand the designs of the Mikdash. And if they are sufficiently embarrassed, and if they're sufficiently embarrassed of their sins, go and tell them all of the entryways and the exits, all of the measurements and all the laws and all of the shapes of the Mikdash. Go and explain to them the halachas of building the Beis HaMikdash. Write it down for them. And let them keep its formation. And let them understand all the laws, and build it and do it. And Yechezkel screams out, says the Medrash Tanchuma, Ribbana Shalom. Ribbana Shalom, they just saw it burn, they're in bother. They're in bother. What do you want from them? They're going to build the Mikdash now? How? The Rebbeinu Shalom says, what? Just because they're in Galus, the Mikdash should be batel? It's a difficult medrash. Because then the Rebbeinu Shalom goes on to say, learn about it. If you learn about it, it's like you're building it. We wonder how this helps. We have a Masar from the Tzaddikim. You'll see this in the Ramban and in Rabbeinu Bechaya, and you'll see that the Rama wrote an entire Sefer, Torah Sa'olah, and the Ramchal wrote Mishkanei Elyon, that go through all of the details of the Mikdash and explain how every detail in the Mikdash, if we would understand it, we could transform our lives. And if we would transform our lives, then we would transform the world. And if we would transform the world, then we would build the Mikdash. And I want to try to understand for a few moments, before we start building the Mikdash, what the blueprint is. And we'll say it outside in the interest of time. And we'll go from the inside out. The inside of the inside, the Pnimius, the Kodesh HaKodashim. That the designs of the Mikdash began at the center of all things. The Aron Kodesh that contained the Luchos HaEven, with the kruvim on top. And the two things that exist in the Kodesh HaKadosh, the two most important things that exist in all of Yiddishkeit, are present there, emblematic of that place, and represented by those kelim. One is the centrality of Torah, and the other is the centrality of relationships. Because in the middle of everything of the whole world, where all Jews face forever, is Torah Hashem. That's the Luchos, and the Kruvim facing each other, which is the relationship between us and Hashem, and the relationship between husband and wife, and the relationship between parents and children. And please God, we'll have an opportunity to understand all of this in more detail one day. But that is center stage. And then you take 5 steps outside of the Kodesh HaKadoshim, and you see that there is a menorah in the Dorim, because the menorah is all of Chachma, all of wisdom, all of natural sciences, all of intellect, all of psychology, all of mathematics and biology. Because like the Vilna Gaon said, there's no contradiction between the world and the Torah. It's 2 books with 1 author. And that's the menorah, all the wisdom of the world. And then, if you want to become wealthy, turn north. Because there's the Shulchan, which is all of Parnasa and all of business and all of enterprise and all of sustaining humanity and all of providing for our families and all of building up the world with brilliance and ingenuity. That's the Shulchan. The Beis Yaakov Ishbitz tells us that in the menorah and on the Shulchan there was a din of Tamid. There was a ner Tamid, a light that burned forever, eternally. And there was lechem upon him, there was Tamid. And there were nisim that happened to both of these, to both the light and the bread. The light never went out and the bread never went stale, says the Beis Yaakov Ishbitz. Because when you're standing in front of the Kodesh HaKadoshim, when you're standing in front of the Ribono Shel Olam with your priorities in line, and you're plugged into the Shorish of all Chaim, you're plugged into the life of all life, and then your wisdom never goes dim, and your bread never goes stale. But center stage, facing the Kodesh HaKadoshim, is the Mizbeach HaKetoros. Tikain Tfilosi Ketoros. That's the place of our tefillas, of the words of our mouths, of the beating of our heart, where every Jew is represented, because Yud Aleph Simanim, the 11 spices that were ground together, representing every kind of Jew. Hedek hetev, grind them all up together, because Rabbi Sai, Hamas doesn't care which kind of yarmulke you wear before they shoot a rocket at you, yes? Tikain Tfilasik Tyrus. We're in this together. The Mizbeach HaKetoros was the place that all of the tefillas and all of Klal Yisrael rose up. And then outside in the Azara is the big Mizbeach. The big Mizbeach where we take the Behemius, that part of ourselves that needs to be shechted by Mesiras Nefesh. And we put that on the Mizbeach and we say, Ribono Shel Olam, we want to be godly. And we understand that that means giving something up. And And the Ramchal writes that were it to be that we would realign our lives, we would realign our priorities, we would realize who we are. Then Bilvavi Mishkan Evne, then we would build the Beis HaMikdash inside of our hearts and inside of our minds, and then it would not be destroyed. Then it could be rebuilt. So in 4 minutes, I want to build with you. I want to build with you by answering the question that we weren't supposed to ask. Last night we began with Eicha Yashva Badad. And Chazal tell us that there were 3 people that said Eicha. Yeshayahu, who saw the Jewish people bepalch zan, he says, Eicha ha'yisol zayna. How could it be that the Jewish people became so despicable? And Yirmiyahu sees us in our utter despair. He says, Eicha yashva badad. How could it be that she sits alone at Yerushalayim in HaKodesh? And Moshe Rabbeinu saw the Jewish people b'shal v'asam at their greatest. He said, Eicha yisol, how can I carry this people alone? And there's many Torahs that have been said on this. Rabbi Goldberg spoke so beautifully about so many aspects of this, but I want to now answer the question. Says Moshe Rabbeinu, how could I carry it alone? Rabbi said, what was the answer? What was the answer? To how could I ever have carried this alone? What was the answer? He didn't. Moshe Rabbeinu didn't carry Klal Yisrael alone. He carried Klal Yisrael together with Shivim Zakenim and with the Ribbon Shalom. That's what the Pasuk says. Yes? Let's answer these rhetorical questions. How can I carry the Jewish people alone? You can't. You have the Ribbon Shalom, you have Shivim Zakenim. How could it be that the Jewish people became so despicable? We didn't. It was never true. How could Yerushalayim sit alone? She didn't. It never happened. Because the world has convinced us, my dear sweet and holy friends, that Moshe Rabbeinu did it alone, that the Jewish people is disgusting, and that Yerushalayim is destitute. And none of it's true. The answer to all 3 of the Nevi'im is that the question is not rhetorical, it is answerable. If you build the Mikdash in your heart and in your mind, if we realize that Yerushalayim is not alone, and that the Jewish people are not disgusting, and that Moshe Rabbeinu could never have done it by himself, we had to help him, the Rebbeinu Shalom had to help him. If we realize that none of this is true, then the Beis HaMikdash can be rebuilt now. Everybody looks and says, well, how are we going to do it? How? This is how. This is how. Put an iron in the kruvim in the middle of your life. Realign all of your wisdom and all of your business and all of your parnasa, all of our tefillas. Realign all of that to the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Live b'mesiras nefesh. And then the Beis HaMikdash is rebuilt. The Mashiach Ayim with our handiwork. Just one little square of Yerushalayim left that we need to fix, right? There's for sure a construction company that can take care of that. There's for sure one rocket left for Hamas. Just one. It's got a location, and then we can build. Yes? Why not?
Yeah, let's go there.
When Rav Kahneman came to Bnei Brak, he started putting the foundations of the Panovich Yeshiva, and they looked at him and they said to him, Rav Herzog said to him, Rebbe, you're dreaming. And he looked at them and he said, I might be dreaming, but I'm not sleeping. I might be dreaming, but I'm not sleeping. We build it in our hearts and our minds. Hashem should help us to build it with our hands.